When I use the term megachurch, what do you picture? For me, at least, I picture a ton of people. That's the mega part. In a big auditorium, the auditorium's dark, the stage is bright, everybody's wearing very contemporary clothing. All of the language and style is really dialed in on whatever is right now culturally. I think of megachurches is focusing on taking the ancient message of Jesus and saying it in the most modern terms, trying to speak into the hustle and bustle of the modern digital world to communicate Jesus to right now. What I don't picture is a bunch of traditional accoutrements, traditional elements of the worship service. I definitely don't picture a lot of engagement with all of church history, the Christians who came in between, or the creeds. Then, maybe you see it differently, but for me, that's where my head goes. So you can imagine my surprise the other day when I came across a book called What's a Christian Anyway by a gentleman named Glenn Packiam. This is a book arguing that the most famous of all the ancient creeds, the Nicene Creed, written in the 300s AD, is something that has a bunch of lost wisdom that would be really applicable to modern churches today. Well, that book itself doesn't sound that surprising. A lot of people think that. What's surprising is that Glenn is the pastor of a non-denominational megachurch, or one that is right at the doorstep of what you would call a megachurch. Well, I had to know what that was about. So I got the book. I read the book carefully. I appreciated the book. And I was able to line up a visit to go out and take a camera and show you this church and see it with my own eyes, because I wanted to get a look at how this plays out. What does a non-denominational megachurch that is trying to inform itself with the Nicene Creed look like in Southern California? So with that said, let's go to Costa Mesa, California with Pastor Glenn Packiam to check out Rockharbor Church.
So this is kind of, the front door where people walk in.
Yeah.
And oftentimes these tall tables are for, if we're doing a groups launch, this is how you find a group or a course, or if there's a ministry thing or a serve opportunity, it's going to be, someone from those areas will be running those tables. And then this banner changes with whatever sermon series we're in. Right now, obviously, it's just a big announcement about each we are in a series. But this fountain was built by one of the founders who passed away, too young, pretty tragically. But it was like in his honor.
What's the significance of this passage? What's going on there?
More familiar to maybe some people would be the translation that says, "If you want to be great, you got to be the least of these." But in the Message paraphrase, Jesus is saying, do you want to stand out? Then step down. So we have other words that we use when we talk about the church. We talk about encounter, formation, mission. Encounter is about coming with expectation that we're going to really meet God here. We're not just going through the motions. There's an encounter with the living God every time we gather. And then formation is about the transformation that we hope takes place as we share our lives with one another, as we engage in kind of spiritual practices, as we learn together. And then mission is just this reminder that it's not meant to stay with us. It's not for our own sake. We're holding those three in tension with one another. If you run away with encounter, you become kind of an experience junkie and I just want the next high.
Yeah.
If you run away with formation, you kind of just become like it's a school, we just want to learn. If you run away with mission, then it doesn't become a community that people can belong to. But holding the idea is if you hold all three in tension, it actually generates some really good things. You meet Jesus, you become like Jesus, you join Jesus in his mission.
Here, let's step inside. There's a helicopter,
yeah.
right? Which is amazing.
Yeah, we're right by an airport. There's helicopters. I know, yeah. That thing's loud.
This is cool because to me, it both reminds me of an iPhone, which I think of as being very California.
Yes.
But it also reminds me of kind of that mission, Southern California, 17th century thing.
Yes. I think both echoes are right, and that's new. They were right angles, actually, and
really?
in the remodel that we just did last year, one of the little touches the designer recommended or wanted was these curves. So there's curves everywhere now, which is kind of cool. Even from a design geek standpoint, the R and the H are letters with curves in them.
Oh yeah,
at Rockharbor. This is our Connect desk. And it's fun.
So if somebody comes in here for the first time, do they need to find this, or are people recognizing them?
There's people standing here. There's people at every door. So there's all kinds of things here. We use a lot of stuff with our app, and so QR codes tend to just lead people to our app.
Okay.
So there's still some tactile things, but what we really aim for is high touch with people. and then high tech in terms of accessing information and all of that.
This is really uncluttered. It's nice. This isn't intimidating. And I think people are, though, right? They're intimidated to come for the first week, first time, I assume.
Generally, and that's where like having people at doors that are looking for you, looking at you, ready to greet you. And you know, it's fun. This table right around the corner here is full of donuts on a Sunday morning.
Why isn't it full of donuts now, Glenn Packiam?
It's because
I like donuts.
I should have prepared.
No, I'm not like trying to criticize you, but you knew I was coming, right?
I'm a failure. But it just shows you how good our team is and how weak I am.
Look what you did. Look what you did. You just deflected that.
No, there's an amazing team. So there's donuts all here, and then around the corner when we walk to it is a cafe area where it's all just coffee, just available for everyone.
This to me feels old school.
It's a little.
I said yes to Jesus today. Yeah. Don't interpret that as me like rolling my eyes at it. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But why do you have this sign here? What does it mean?
In February, we did an unusual sermon series. We called it Objections. We named like 5 key objections that people have.
Give me a couple of them.
Okay, so how could Christianity be the only true religion? Why did Jesus have to die? Seems barbaric, Why would a loving God allow suffering? Why are Christians so weird about sex and sexuality and all that stuff? Why do they care? The point of that is at the very end, we don't every week say, hey, if you want to follow Jesus today, but we did during that series. And we saw so many people give their life to Jesus that this came as a result of that. We had to have bags ready and something ready because they're walking out the door.
Can I see what's in the bag?
Yeah, sure. Sure.
Well, I like where we're starting.
There you go. Got a Bible.
All right. How do I find a community at Rockharbor? Mm-hmm. Brilliant.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's about belonging, and we say it very often, like, we're not interested in just having you, be at a service. We want to help you belong.
Are these folks still around?
Yeah.
From that series?
Yeah.
How are they doing?
I think they're doing well. I couldn't tell you the emails or names of all 45 of those people, right?
45?
45.
That's like
in
a
a
church.
5-week span. It's pretty cool. We're really grateful, but I know a number of them are going to get baptized on Easter, which we're really happy about.
This is awesome. And I had a thing happen to me after I made a video like this at a Catholic church. I don't know, maybe a month or 2 later, I get the nicest email from him, and it's like, hey, Matt, I wanted to invite you to be Catholic. Oh. I just wondered if maybe no one had ever asked. And so, he and I see things differently. Sure. I'm already a Christian. Yeah,
right. Yes.
Yes. Cool.
Yes.
Here's exactly why I'm a Christian. I'm clear on why I'm in Christ. But here's what I loved about what that guy did. It just occurred to him, maybe nobody had ever asked me.
It's true.
He believes his thing is a true and real reflection of Christ, and I think it is too. Yeah. And so he invited me because he thinks it's true and that there's life in it. Yeah. And so I walk in here and see this. And what that tells me right off the bat is, you think this is real, and you're going to ask.
Yes.
These folks who are becoming Christians over the years, have you seen any of them go through a process of getting trained and discipled, I guess is the word we use in churches, and getting to a place where they're starting to lead stuff?
Yeah. Just this morning, I was with a couple from our church who run a gym, and she got radically saved a year ago at our church. And he said, and then she got saved like January, February. She got baptized on Easter, and her husband was there taking pictures, nice camera, all this stuff. And he said, I felt like a physical force pushing me towards the water, like that I should do it too. And he's like, if you told me a man was behind me, I would have believed you. And he's like, look, there's nobody there. And he's like, I wanted to get baptized too. So they went home, they came back for the whatever 12:30 service. And I go, what are you doing? You're back. And he goes, the pictures were bad last time, so she's going to do it again. I looked at it, and he goes, no, I'm just kidding. And he goes, I want to give my life to Jesus. I go, what? So they're now plugged in with community, and they're beginning to lead. And he was telling me some subtle ways, even in their business, in their gym, that they're seeing it as part of their mission and their purpose in the world. So are they leading in the church in the traditional senses? Not necessarily, but they're thinking now.
Well, they've been Christians for a year?
Exactly.
You said right over here, I'm going to grab a drink while we talk.
Yeah.
You said right over here is where you do like mid-sized classes or something?
Yeah.
Dude, did you see this? That thing had some power, man. I feel like I need a cloth or something to fix all this. Bro. Last observation from me in here.
Yeah, so this is, and it can be set up different ways. Most of the time it has tables because of, groups and or courses and things like that. Yes, it serves well to do like guest receptions and
What do you call this?
The box.
I knew it was going to have some name.
Just
They always end up with a
they
name,
always have
right?
a
They
name.
do. It's the annex. It's the fort. They all have a name, man.
It's with non-denominational churches, we're in a giant warehouse.
Do you have any subgroups called SALT, and SALT is an acronym? I don't know if you're real, dude. You should. I'll try to come up with some. At one church I was at, I think it's enough time has passed that they won't feel bad for me making fun of them. It was SALT, single adults living together. Ooh. And I was like, so
Living together? I mean,
it's like a weird cohabitation.
Might want to think that one through,
Yeah, I don't know. They meant well. God bless everybody. You got to have a SALT. Yeah, they did. You don't. I don't know. So this
you want to pop in here?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah. So this is the worship center.
You do 3 services.
So right now we do
here.
3, 9, 11, and 7, but we've been growing a lot. And so right after Easter, we're adding a 4th service and scrambling all the times.
How do you characterize this? Does this count as a megachurch, or is this a large
Great.
church?
I think of it as a large church. I think the qualifier by the Research Institute or whatever is like 2,000 people or more. On average weekly attendance, we're sitting at 1,600. So I still think of it as that large, mid-size.
I didn't mean to ask about a specific number.
No,
Forgive me if that was weird.
No, it's not. No, and I don't like talking about the numbers thing. But I heard this stat. It was like, the average church in America is like 80 people, 85 people, but the average Christian goes to a megachurch.
Oh, no, that's an interesting way to break it down. I really appreciate the way you deftly tried to just downplay all of the success of what's going on at the church. Yeah. But the reason I want to ask about it and want to keep badgering you about it is because of that moniker, megachurch. Understandably, people hear that term, they imagine something very corporate.
Yeah.
I think there is a lot of impulsive recoil from the idea of a big church or a megachurch.
Absolutely.
How do you make it be a church?
Access to leaders, access to the pastor sometimes, and the threshold that gets crossed, sort of the crossing of the Rubicon, is when nobody gets to know who the senior pastor is or where he is. Nobody knows whose homes he's in or if he's in anyone's homes. It becomes from the green room to the stage. So even on Sundays, it's green room to the stage. They're not in at the doors. They're not in the lobby. They're not, and this is kind of even just like super weird, but like they're not even using the same bathrooms as everyone else, And these are the little things in my mind where it's like you've become more and more cloistered. And when you diminish access or when you create distance, to put it the other way, when you create distance between the person who's meant to be your shepherd and you, I think they become less human. I think a pastor becomes less human, and I think you start to feel like less than human. Now, what I'm not...
As an attender, you feel like less than human.
Now, I'm not saying that the pastor is responsible to know everyone, be at everybody's hospital room, graveside, all that sort of stuff. Of course not. And
because of math.
Because of math and human capacity, right? Everybody has limitations. You're not a bad leader for having limitations, but you can be an unhealthy leader if you ignore them. So we all have limitations. I'm not telling people that a pastor has to be superhuman. And I think, there's this sociological rule of 150. Once you cross that threshold of 150, human relationships within this network get more difficult. So you have to have an associate or other people who will say, hey, we want to help, all of that is true and good and fine.
The disciples found it in Acts 7.
Yes.
We have to do something here.
This is as early as the early church, right?
Yeah.
So the problem is not sharing the load together or having a staff. The problem is when you do that and then you recoil and you go somewhere else and nobody knows where you are. So there are stories, sadly, of the megachurch guys who during the week, they're never in the office. So their staff doesn't even have access to them. They're working from home or at their ranch or whatever. And then they roll in the weekend, they film, they come out, And maybe that's what they need to do. I feel like those are the kinds of things that depersonalize church.
You're saying that what maybe separates healthy from unhealthy or large from mega, it's a function of how the leadership comes at it. Does it still look like a church, or does it look like some sort of celebrity structure and what you would expect? Yeah, like if in Vegas you have stars attached to casinos, like Celine is.
That's right, but you don't expect to see Celine. She's not going to be sitting down at the dinner. So I think there is. I want one of my hopes is, no matter how many people know your name or hear your voice, be a person, not a personality. Be a human being, you know? And that doesn't mean everyone knows you vulnerably and personally, but it does mean that some do, you know? And when you lose that, I think we become the worst versions of ourselves. I've thought a little bit even about like scandals and pastors, and I think power is a multiplier and pace is a multiplier. So let's create a little math equation. You have pain, a place of brokenness in your life. I have pain. We all do, right? Can't get around that. None of us have, we're all fragile. We all have a breaking point. Mm-hmm. So you have to think about, if power can multiply the impact of my pain in my story, I've got to do my best to be whole, but I've also got to do my best to give away the power. Pace is a multiplier, so I've got to run at a sustainable enough pace so that isn't multiplying the worst parts of me. But you know what's a divider? Proximity is a divider. So proximity is it. So whereas power and pace can multiply pain, proximity can divide it. It reduces it. Why? Because now someone knows me. Now someone knows the vulnerability of my life, my story, who I am, my humanness. So even let's just play this out in a church setting. My wife and I are in a small group with 3 other couples from our church. They know the different things we're crying about, praying about, and we know the same for them.
Do you lead that group?
There's no it's a whole bunch of mature believers. We're leading each other. We're just it's a pretty open format, but we kind of know we're going to be sharing and we're going to be praying, and sometimes we read a book together. You know? And something happens where churches get large and pastors give up on proximity while increasing their power and increasing their pace, and that is the kiss of death.
That makes infinite sense. And the fact that you found a way to make it alliteration with 3 P's
means that I'm a preacher, right?
Dude, that helped. That's pretty good.
Because 4 P's: power, pace, pain, and proximity.
Yeah, and your last name. Like, I don't know, man.
These are kids' classrooms, by the way. So this would be nursery and toddler stuff, and then in here's upper elementary or elementary.
Thank you for speaking to that topic, though, that I just brought up. That's potentially weird. I put you on the spot.
No,
People care about that, and they want to know. And to pull back the curtain a little bit on what it's like to be in your position in a church like this, and to know that you have a thoughtful ethic that all has the same starting letter. Like, honestly, it's a pathway, and it's important. Yeah. And if somebody's going to sign up to follow Jesus, and they're going to go to a church that statistically they're most likely to go to, they want to know that. Like, who's the actual person who's up there feeding into my soul, and do they have any plan to keep from turning into a weird, twisted up mess?
And speaking of twisted, the most twisted thing about this is people in our profession can get good at vulnerability in front of a camera or in front of an audience. Yeah. But that's not the same thing as proximity.
It's acting.
It's acting. Mm-hmm. And so, preachers get to share about their life, and they'll cry. And I'm totally vulnerable. Yeah. Well, name me 5 people in your church who know you, who've been in your home this year. Name me 5 people that you've been in their homes. And that, it seems so basic. I'm almost embarrassed to say it. But sometimes there's a certain line that people cross, and they're no longer doing that. They're in green rooms, but nobody's living rooms. Yeah.
Oh, whoa. That's a good turn of a phrase, man. Yeah, you put that in a book. I love the way you guys did this.
It's fun.
Here's the thing. Pietism, which evangelicalism is born out of, so much of that is Scandinavian, German, kind of Northern European. Yeah. And so, there is just something about this motif that is reminiscent of that. And I notice this in every place. Your worship center is very functional. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not the kind of place that's been built to tell the story with the room. The room's meant to work. Yeah. But this tells the story because you've got that old church motif of the nave, the upside down boat that carries you through the water of sin and trouble through the vessel that is the church, right? But look, they did.
Yeah, they did. They did do that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. The hallway is normally what's functional in a church, and here the hallway really tells the story. So I love it.
You've just given me some more language, man.
If you say so. Is it all right if we pull up a seat here and I ask you one more question?
Yeah, of course.
I'm going to let you off the hook for the moment.
Yeah.
Somebody says, explain to me what it is to become a Christian. What do I do? How do I become a Christian? Yeah. Theologically, what's your answer to that?
I would say it begins with saying yes to Jesus. If you can trust that God looks like Jesus, and this is what God is like, you want to trust Him with your life, your future, your past. That's what following Jesus looks like. It's a surrender, a turning over of your life to Him. So it is. I would, and I do. Say, okay, to become a Christian, it looks like a very simple yes, to turn your life over to Jesus. And there's a journey of becoming like Him and joining Him in His mission. But man, the very heart of it is just saying, I'm yours. I want to belong to you.
What if somebody comes back in a month and they say, I believe that, also Glenn helped me believe.
Yeah.
Like, this is hard, and it felt amazing for a week.
Yeah, but now it's...
Then I got in a fight with my wife, and it wasn't good this week. And then it felt amazing for a week. And then I took a demotion at my job, and now it doesn't feel so great. And then I saw a couple videos that criticized Christianity, and now I'm kind of wobbling again, but the music was amazing today, your message was amazing. Glenn, what do I do to get out of this thing? Am I still a Christian?
You're absolutely still a Christian. This is part of what the journey looks like. It's full of ups and downs like that, and it's why you need a community. Faith is a community project, and I'd love to help you find a community to walk with you through this, because we all need people to lift us up when we're down. When our faith is weak, someone else's is going to be strong, and on it goes.
Final question. What do you hope happens here?
Man, it looks like people finding everything they've been looking for, that they'll find it in Jesus. They'll find that hope, that love, that belonging, that peace in Jesus. And the simplest way to say what's a Christian is someone who belongs to Jesus, someone who believes in Jesus, and someone who, by the grace of God, is becoming like Jesus, And that's what I hope happens here. I hope people encounter Him here. I hope they're being formed to be like Him here. And I hope they learn to live their life with a different kind of purpose and mission here.
This video has a very simple quest to it. I went to California and to Rockharbor Church because I wanted to see what it would look like when a modern, evangelical, non-denominational, large church or megachurch style church intentionally tried to inform what it's doing with ancient Christianity, with the Nicene Creeds. And the places that I would suspect that I might see that would be in the facility, in the people, how they conduct themselves, and in the ministry strategy, what they're doing, what they emphasize, etc. And in terms of the building, it looked like most large churches that I've been to. Mega churches tend to be very functional in their approach. They're trying to do two things. One, the worship center is built to work. It's dark, it's streamable or broadcastable, so they don't spend a lot of money putting accoutrements all over the place. Instead, they got screens, they do it digitally, and on a Sunday morning, it's going to be packed with Christian imagery, but it's Christian imagery that is up on screen and then comes off of screen a little bit later. So it's just a different approach. No exception here. Rockharbor had a very utilitarian, very functional worship center, not the kind of place where you would go and sit and hang out and reflect and pray. That isn't really what it's for. But the other thing that I see when I go to large churches, mega churches, streamable churches, etc., is that the rest of the facility is meant to be very welcoming, the kind of place where if you're coming in for your first time, the building just screams, be here, and be here as you are. You don't have to know what you're doing yet. You don't have to sign up for everything here yet. Just show up. There's a lot of intentionality at Rockharbor about how the facility would serve not just the people who've been there for a long time, but the people who are walking in the door. And is that informed by the Nicene Creed or not? I didn't see a lot in the building that said, that looks like ancient Christianity. But in fairness, I didn't expect to. Where I did see it more was on that second thing. The humility and competence of the people was very impressive. Glenn is a guy who is decidedly evangelical, but also very rooted in church history. And the effect that's had on him, in my estimation, is humility. And I guess this is the third thing I was looking for when I went to check out the church, a desire not just to communicate the gospel to people who are outside of the Christian faith, but to nurture people toward serious depth and effectiveness for the kingdom of God themselves. And did you hear the thing he said about that one? I don't remember if he said it was 1 week of church or a series that they did, but 45 people. That's a really significant percentage of their total attendance who just became Christians right there. Then, I recorded this before Easter. Then they did their Easter service and they baptized a whole bunch of these people. So look, I get it. There are going to be some of you who are like, I love churches like this. This is where I feel at home. This is what I do. awesome. There are going to be some of you who would say, this isn't a fit for me. This isn't how I do things. God bless everybody. There are going to be some other people who look at this and you don't like it. You feel an aversion to this style of church. Doesn't matter who you are. This is clearly historical, creedal, Orthodox Christianity. I mean, that's exactly what we're there talking about. And this church is producing converts to that in really meaningful numbers in a really influential part of the world. Dang, that's a big deal. And I'm grateful to them for figuring out how to talk to their neighbors about Jesus. It's what we're supposed to do. It's what we're commissioned to do. So I was really impressed. However, I didn't feel like in the tour I was able to pull back all the layers that I wanted to and really get into the idea part of things. And how does the Nicene Creed, give me specifics. So that's why we sat down and we did this whole extra interview thing. That's what the next video is going to be about. On my way out the door here, let me just say a huge thank you to Glenn Packiam, to Rockharbor Church, and everybody I met there for opening their doors, taking the risk on inviting you and me in. And also thank you to you for being interested in this sort of thing. If this is your style of church that we just went and visited, cool, fun. I mean, you went and looked at something that you're familiar with. But if it's not, hey, thank you even more, because that's empathetic and it's gracious and it's humble on your part to want to know how other people would come at it and learn more about why they're coming at it the way they do. I hope videos like this make us like each other better, understand each other better, and make it easier for us to root for each other as we're out there doing kingdom things along the way. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Again, please come back for that next video if you have a chance to do so. And Glenn's book is called What's a Christian Anyway? I'll put a link down below in the show notes so you can go and grab it and check it out if you want to. All right, that's plenty for now. I'm Matt. Thanks for hanging out with me on my YouTube channel. Let's do this again soon.